Give it to me, I'll read it.
Okay, Jeff.
School Board of Directors together, to order. Roll call, please.
Jackie Brooks,
Here.
Sharon Barkama,
Here.
Gary Berkland,
Here.
Ricky McDaniel,
Here.
Darcy Mosman,
Here.
Marcus Lichty,
Here.
Jane Turner,
Jane, are you
Say
here?
my name?
Yes.
I can hardly hear her, so yes, I'm here.
Telephonically.
Okay, we're all here. We have a quorum. We have a public hearing, first of all, on the school calendar for 2018-2019. Any resident or taxpayer may present objections to or arguments in favor of any part of the proposed school calendar. Do you want to go through that, Dan?
Well, we have copies of the calendar, and so we're proposing a calendar that's very similar to our current calendar. The board asked for 2 different versions to be presented tonight for them to choose from. One has a full week of spring break, and but unfortunately it has graduation over Memorial Day weekend. The other has no spring break and we're able to graduate students a week earlier, so we wouldn't have graduation conflicting with the holiday. And that's about all the different distinction between the 2 calendars. Yeah, see if there's anybody in the public who'd like to comment.
Hearing none. We'll move on. All right. Welcome everyone to the board meeting. I have a card from Bobby McVeigh. If you'd like to come up and speak to the board, Bobby.
where do you want me to go?
Just somewhere where you're on camera.
Oh, yes.
This way or this?
You're perfect, right?
Right there.
You go by Teresa.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. I'm an aunt and I'm a grandmother of children here at BK, and I have some concerns about this sport sharing topic. I don't quite understand where this is coming from. BK has always had some low numbers. But even so, BK put in a state playoff appearance in football this year. We placed 15th in true team state wrestling with 3 state qualifiers, which we probably would have had 4, but we lost Remington too, a few short weeks before state. But I think that says a lot about our program and our coaches. I think that's something to be proud of. I'm proud to be from BK and proud of those boys that went to state. I don't really understand why we're even considering this. I've heard we've got 30-some kids possibly going out for cross-country this year. And I'm a little curious with this wrestling program, if these kids, I don't quite understand how it works. Maybe you guys can enlighten me a little bit more. Do they wrestle somebody from Clarion Goldfield and then they get beat out, they're out, or how is this going to work? And I'm wondering if this will discourage some of our kids from going out. And, you know, I'm just wondering if any of you have even talked to the kids, the students or the parents, to see how they feel, because the ones that I've talked to, most of them do not want this. And I think that's something we have to consider. We have some very talented junior high kids coming up in wrestling this year. I'm just going to put it out there, one of them is Dr. Dan's son, which is very, very good. But I do have to wonder, you know, we've had low numbers in wrestling years and years before. I'm just wondering why is this the time? I know Dan mentioned in the paper last June about it's hard to get kids to go out for wrestling, especially when it's a losing program. We sent 3 kids to state this year. I don't think we have a losing program. And there's been maybe even some talk about open enrollment, I've heard. I don't think that's good for BK either. And those are my thoughts on this subject. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is to approve or amend the agenda.
If everybody else would like to speak.
I almost
Yeah, but it's open anyway.
Is anybody else?
Yeah.
He's asking?
Is this the time?
Yeah.
Kenny Bach, I represent the Booster Club. In our last meeting.
Don't stand in front of the camera. Sorry.
Kenny Bach.
There you go.
Booster Club. At our last meeting, it was brought to our attention that we've had some help with our inventory. Michelle Murphy explained to me that one time the Pepsi man, or I'm not sure, I'm guessing it's the Pepsi man, came one morning. She went back in the afternoon to check on stuff, and there was items already missing. And this has happened on 3 occasions, she said. I think she spoke to you on 2 of them. We're questioning how many keys are out there. At one time, she mentioned she had 2 keys, different, and they both unlocked the door. Our question at the meeting come up with, there's security cameras there.
There is now. There was the first 2 that I know about. We did not have cameras in place. We do have one in place now. Interesting thing, I don't know where they get these keys from because I don't have one to it.
Yeah, and I just talked to her tonight because I wanted to make sure I had the stories correct before I got up here and made a fool of myself. But we're questioning, what can we do to help make sure they're locked, we're not losing inventory,
Yeah, now if I know we have an issue, I can do something about it because we have the
Okay.
cameras back.
and the cameras are working now?
They are working. About the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
And this is the concession stand by the
Concession
library.
stand down by the lake,
Inside.
yeah, it's, she said it's happened at least 3 times this year, so we just wanted to make sure it was addressed, and maybe
Yeah,
evidently
so
it's in the
now,
works.
yeah, I didn't know about the 3rd time, I didn't know about the other 2. I just didn't have
Thanks.
cameras to get access to it.
Thanks,
See you.
Kenny.
Yeah, TV once in a while.
Thanks, Kenny.
Yep, thank you.
Make some comments real quick.
Yes.
Kenny, I don't know if you're aware, and I don't know if Greg is either, but it takes 2 different keys to get into the concession stand.
Right,
One gets in the door from the hallway.
and that's where the
different
products are
one gets-
missing. They're missing in the storage area and sometimes off the cooler, she said, so.
I've been in there numerous times during this winter sports season to get the clock out and get things set up for a game, and that door that goes into the actual concession stand by the cooler has been wide open, unlocked.
I
The
thought you were
one on
referring
the
to inside.
outside's been locked, but the one on the inside is not.
And we
So-
thought maybe part of the issue might have been when FFA people were starting to meet,
And could be.
but they still gotta get in the first door somehow.
Right. So I mean, I know the one door hasn't been locked at different times.
Yeah.
And I've even went in and that outside door.
And if the cameras are working and we
They
can
are
maybe
now.
go back and look if there's an issue,
Yeah.
that's
they
what we're
are.
concerned about, so.
They are now.
You can rekey the door.
Sounds like it might be a good idea.
Yeah, can I say something about the sports thing?
Of course you can.
Kelly 80, I'm a teacher here in Belmont. I grew up here in Belmont, moved back about 10 years ago. And I know that we had this discussion a little bit last year about maybe sharing some programs and different things. And I don't know how it works, and maybe I don't need to know how, but I know the community's gonna wanna know how it works if we go to this direction. I know in 2011, we had about 7 wrestlers out for wrestling because I was one of the coaches. Not a mention of combining or sharing or anything. About that same time, we had more open events in girls' track than we had runners. Nothing was said then. This year, we have quite a few numbers out for girls' track. My question is, are we looking at all the best possible things, and how is it all going to look if we did decide? Are we looking at just one school or multiple schools? Would our name change? Are we locked in for so many years, or if our numbers are up, can we just say no that season? Transportation, coaches, colors, all that stuff. But I think that we, and I say we as a community, and everybody in here, in the board, teachers, coaches, kids, and everybody should be let aware of this process, what we're looking into, and what it's going to entail. Because there's going to be a lot of questions, with it. And I myself, I'm old school. I have a lot of passion for Belmont and the sports and activities, whether it's jazz band or athletics and stuff. And I would really like to see us stay ourselves, because I think once we split, we lose our identity. And once you lose that, you can't really get it back. And like I say, that might be old school talking, but that's just my passion for Belmont and the athletics and the activities here. And I just hope we give it a big, solid look instead of just jump in, because the numbers are low a little bit now, and in 2 years, they're gonna be big in different sports. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Can I address the board? So we can.
Thank you.
At our last Wrestling Boosters Club, I went to the boosters and I told them I didn't want them to be surprised, that I was going to take a polling of all of our activities. Our students will receive that tomorrow for every activity, including FFA, trap shooting, you name it. That's going to be on that poll for all events next year. And I said to the group, the wrestlers, I didn't want them to be surprised that there might be only 8 athletes. I was going to take that report to the board. It's up to the board to determine what they're going to do. And all of a sudden, I've got a whole bunch of people wondering about wrestling, wondering about this. I just wanted to communicate with you to make sure that you were okay with it, and knowing that I was going to have some conversations, because last time people seemed like they weren't alerted to the fact that people were coming in about the wrestling program. It's about all things, every activity, including trap shooting, new group, you name it, it's going to be on that thing. And I'm going to present it to the board. And they've got to look at it and say what's viable, what's not viable, what are we going to do? Is sharing an alternative? I don't know that. The board probably doesn't know that yet either, about what that is. But I didn't want you to be left out in the conversation. I'm always right there putting it to you so you know what's going on. So don't take it like we're sharing right now and it's going to be wrestling only. That's not it at all. I'm putting out a survey to all kids, 7, 12, actually be 6th graders coming up, so that we know what they're doing, so that we can have things in place to help support those kids. Seems to me we've always been reactive in everything we're doing. We're playing catch up in everything we're doing. I'm trying to beat that horse. I shouldn't say that, that's a poor analogy. I am trying to get ahead in that race a little bit. All right? Sorry that I got everybody here. Got them confused.
And Mr. Reed, to clarify, as far as a process, we'll be happy to let everyone know what the process is, if there is a process. At this point, we have no process. Last summer, we were approached by some citizens who suggested we needed to look at sports sharing. The board said it was not an appropriate time last summer, and we should revisit that topic after the winter sports seasons. So here it is, March after the winter sports season. The board said, let's put this on as a discussion item only tonight. So I don't think the board has any sense of direction or purpose on this issue right now.
And correct my memory if I'm wrong, but I didn't even think wrestling was the primary concern. I thought it was we didn't have enough people for a JV baseball team.
We don't have JV baseball probably.
We don't
Yeah.
have JV basketball, girls basketball.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
bunch of
it
activities
seemed like
out
there
there.
was a lot of things. It wasn't
Yes,
wrestling per se.
you know,
Right.
Yeah.
there for a while we struggled a little bit in vocal with our new group, and now we got those numbers up. Junior high group numbers are up there. I mean, there's just a lot of things you guys need to look at.
What if there's kids that actually want to go out and do things, but they might not be able to because of funding? Like with AAU, that's not funded by the school. That's something the parents have to fund. Whether it, it doesn't matter if it's wrestling or anything else. But the younger kids, that's really on the parents.
It is, right?
So,
It's on the BCBC a little bit, and I think, and I shouldn't speak for the BCBC, but there's enough people on there, or they have connection enough people, that we can try and help and assist and give those scholarships for those
Okay.
people that absolutely cannot make. I know talking to Kevin Stein, that's happened previously, so I'm sure
well,
that.
I'm just hoping that these kids that want to, like the 6th graders that are coming up into 7th grade, that they don't say they want to do something because they may not be able to fund it, or their parents may not be able to fund it. I don't know, like with the younger ones, if we could send it home to the parents maybe. or if they wanna put a little note on there saying, well, we would like to, but, you know,
It's finding that balance because it's a VC, it's not a,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, with our programs, we don't cut. So,
Can I interrupt you a minute?
Yes, go ahead.
Jane. Jane,
Jane?
Ms. Turner?
Yes, I'm listening, yes.
whatever's in the background, could you shut it off?
I don't have anything going.
Okay, we hear
I'm
something.
in the,
Yeah.
I'm in the bedroom with the door shut.
Alone in the
I'm not even gonna touch that.
Mike feedback, okay.
My imagination just perked up. Oh, did I say, Bob?
yeah.
You said that out loud.
Well, I just threw that out there, just, you know, because if they are coming up into the junior high, if I hope they understand that now that they're in the junior high, things will be more funded than not.
I didn't include that in the survey with Ms. Stein. She's the one that developed it for us and we put it out to all the kids in our power lunch classrooms. Then we just have to send it out to the sixth graders on their own. I mean, until we could try and tweak it and do it for that, just that specific group maybe.
That's just a thought, just a thought.
I'm not opposed to that by any means.
Anyone else want to speak to the board?
Someday I'd like to revisit the BCBC itself. That was set up totally as a funding mechanism for Parker Gymnasium and for funding grants and stuff for the community. It wasn't even part of necessarily what it's turned into. So someday I'd just like to see that. If that's been revamped in the charter, I was part of that group that set that up.
It's not your
It's not a school organization, it has nothing to do with this school.
But she's talking about funding it. It wasn't even set up for that. So-
BCBC is not affiliated in any way with this school district, period.
Okay, I just was curious if it's,
We don't have anything to say about it. I don't know why we're discussing it, frankly.
Yeah.
okay,
I'm
just
sorry,
curious.
Tony. I'm just telling you.
Okay.
I've known that from the get-go. This is a private organization.
Right.
Nothing to do with us.
Okay. That's what I thought too, so I was just curious.
Moving on. All right, so at this time, are there any items in the consent agenda that anyone wants to move out of the consent agenda? We've got the minutes, the financial statements, the bills, the second reading of the board policy, the attendance at the National Association of Elementary School Principals Annual Conference, job descriptions, which were for the transportation director and the maintenance director, and employment of some coaches and a resignation of a teacher.
Can we move the employment out?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
All right, so that's out of the consent agenda. Do you want to put that as 7?
7A and bump everything
A.
down?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Everything else?
So clarify what we moved out, clarify exactly what we moved out.
We're moving out employment, 5G, and we're moving that down to action item 7A, and then all the other items will be B, C, D, et cetera.
Are
Okay.
you still getting noise from me?
No,
here?
No,
it's
Well,
better.
whatever
The
that
air
machine was.
conditioner's right outside my window, so maybe that was it, because I'm sorry it's hot here.
Shut up.
I'm sorry, but I'll shut that off.
It's kind of nice here today, too.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. If that's the only other thing you want to...
I've got a couple things I'd like to remove from the agenda.
Okay.
7, it was 7B1, it's now 7C1. The new money report, the state has not indicated that we get any new money yet. We're expecting
Right.
some, but they have not taken action, even though
Yeah.
they promised to take action early on.
Right.
And the other is 7C, it's now 7D, staffing of the secondary administrative position. We're not ready with a recommendation yet tonight.
Okay. So if we eliminate that one, then 7D stays the same. It's still D.
7D will, yeah, 7D goes back from E to D.
Okay. All right. I would just like to suggest that maybe we find a night sometime to just do a board workshop and talk about the school board convention, because we never find time to do it at a board meeting. By the time we get to it, we're tired, we just want to go home.
At midnight, it's just not fun to
It's
talk
not.
about.
So, why don't we take out 8B, and when we set our future agenda, we could find a night that we could just have a workshop and talk about what we learned 4 months ago at the school board convention. Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Sharon,
I'll second that.
Teresa, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Consent items, do I have a motion to approve the consent items A, B, C, D, E, and F?
I'll move to approve the consent items.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Gary?
I would like to make a statement on that. Can I do that?
Yes, you may.
Okay, just concerning the second reading of the revised school board policy, I just wanted to say something that I've written down, and I would like to kind of clarify my no vote on that policy at the last meeting. I've received several positive comments on my no vote. We used to have all annual band dinners, JC's had meals and other activities which facilitated the use of our school on Sundays before noon, and I would like to continue that option. The more our school is used and the more people attend community events or athletic events, the better it is for our school. It promotes an open and positive environment for our school. There are several schools in the area which are open to all activities on Sunday. Unfortunately, or fortunately, times have changed. Many kids are involved in AAU sports, which many times are on Sundays. I watched on my computer the AAU State Wrestling Championships in Des Moines this past weekend, which were held all day Saturday and Sunday. We want our children to be involved in church and church activities as they would like, but also to be involved in their other activities as they choose. I was hoping we didn't have to make them choose, but rather give them the opportunity to be involved in both. Many churches offer youth church services or a couple of services at different times so families can attend both services and activities. I would hope during these different times than when we grew up, our churches could look at different options to keep our youth involved. Even if we don't have the activities here, kids will most likely go elsewhere if they are involved. So to include positive comments from my community members, I will vote no again on this blanket policy. I would rather have a policy that all activities on the use of our facilities be left to the discretion of the superintendent to allow our community to use our facilities all day, Sundays for dinners or other community or sports activities. I would love to have our community involved with our school as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify the consent agenda, we should have probably taken that item out of there, because if you vote no on that, you're voting no on everything in the consent agenda, the minutes, the bills.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, just so you know that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So can we remove D then, or not?
Not now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, so I need a vote on the consent items. All in favor, say yes.
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 All opposed, say no.
I abstain.
Okay. So that's 1 abstain, Thelma, and 6 yes. All right. Moving on to reports. Superintendent's report.
All right, my report, I think you'll find it on page 42 of the packet, and the first thing I'll mention is security camera upgrades. Since that came up earlier today, I wasn't here when these security cameras were installed, but I'm told that they've been a problem over the years, and this year they just have not been functional. We have actually spent thousands of dollars trying to keep these things operational where they worked for a week, and we finally just kind of gave up on them, and we've invested in new equipment. that we believe is going to be a much more reliable. It's a local firm as opposed to the previous cameras that were supported by an out-of-state firm. And, but the price tag on that is a hefty $24,900. But right now, Mr. Young, Mr. Fisher, or how are our cameras doing?
Very nice.
It's all set up. I haven't used it yet, but it's all there and ready to roll, so we don't, it comes in handy, let's just say that.
Actually, they come to my computer now versus before I had a standalone one that in my corner of my office that I had to go to. So that'll go into somebody else's room once their Promethean board tower dies.
Okay. Also in my report, I'd like for us to take a look at lighting replacement. Right now there are energy rebates for upgrading to new LED light fixtures, and I understand those rebates are going away at the end of the 2018 calendar year. Our financials consultant recommends we take a serious look at that and see what kind of savings there could be. So we're going to take a look at that. We've had some struggles with illness here at school. By the end of January, our illness rate had risen to 10% at the elementary and 11% at the secondary school. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is at the bottom, page 43, our civil rights complaint is now closed. For those of you in the public who weren't aware of it, there was some woman in some other state that made it her personal mission to file complaints against the websites of schools all across the nation if there were parts of their websites that were not accessible to people that had sensory handicaps, such as blindness or deafness. And so she filed a complaint. We were fully investigated. We hired attorneys that cost us a lot of money, and we spent a lot of time investing in upgrading our website, but without any further action, the case is now closed. We've met their standards, and we were issued a letter indicating the case was closed by the Civil Rights Office. Does anyone have any questions on any part of my report today?
Okay, thank you. Principal's report.
I will start. I thought today was a wonderful day for our teachers. This morning we had a great opportunity to get together, and Dr. Frazier let us know did on some professional development, small group work, getting some ideas, and trying to set a course for us for the next 5 years as far as our professional development and our vision a little bit. So I thought that went extremely well. I had some good responses from teachers as well. We've been in the heart of the activities here of late. You know, our wrestlers, of course, we had wrestlers down at the state meet, did extremely well, I thought. Very proud of the young men that were down there. On Saturday, our speech team toughed it out, got up to Clear Lake, looked it really well in their performances and did extremely well. We got 11 kids going in multiple events to the state, and I expect some of them to be all-staters. So it'd be nice to see that. Our girls basketball finished up the year, and I think a strong note for them. Our boys got to the second round. You know, I think we're looking, good, positive things are going to happen in both those programs. Looking forward to seeing their growth. Junior high and girls and boys, or girls basketball and wrestling finished up, so that's nice. I thought they did well. Ended up with 7 kids out for wrestling, and the girls basketball team had a nice complement of girls at both levels, around that 10 figure, 8 to 10, 11. So I think we had some good numbers out. I think we, I should say at each level, that 7th and 8th graders both had about that number. I thought we had some good things happening there. I think we're getting ready to do that. Yeah, I can hear it.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying a little bit. We're getting the one-act plays going here. They're starting their stuff. They've had their auditions. We have a new group getting ready to perform this weekend out in Emmitsburg, which is a wonderful thing. We have the District Jazz performing on Thursday. We have our midwinter concert for 5th and 6th graders coming up on Monday, with our basketball banquet on Monday night for the boys, Tuesday night for the girls. I think Wednesday or Thursday night for the wrestlers. So we're all got all that end of the year stuff, and so it's kind of an exciting time, but it's also kind of a sad time because it's over. So that's what I got today.
so.
Thank you.
So I just, this weather stuff and the sickness has really hit us pretty hard. I mean, we missed a lot of days. It's been hard to kind of get in the swing, and you know, with the younger ones, probably not as much with the older kids, but the younger ones, and that routine that they get out of it's really hard. So our staff have really stepped up. We tried to have some fun this month. I passed out a bucket list that I shared with the teachers, asked them to have some fun with the students this month, and asked them to report back with me, check off the boxes. And I bought them pizza last Friday if they, you know, for doing some fun things. If you come over to our school, a bunch of staff, I think 20 staff, found student pictures of themselves when they were students, and they're posting them up on the wall now so the kids can see, you know, they were, you know, their teachers were kids once too. So it's been really fun going through this, and I get to share some fun stuff too. So because I don't have kids every day, I get to go in the classroom and disrupt their day for a little bit and then leave. Kind of like the grandparents do when they have kids, which I do that too. So, yeah, our 5th and 6th grade concert. This is the 3rd time's the charm, hopefully. We'll have that on Monday night. And the kids, I've been watching them rehearse, both the band and the chorus. Please come. They've got some fun stuff. They're going to do some neat things. So be prepared for some fun. And again, we're working really hard. We do some great things here in the community and at the school. We've got some work to do, and we're doing some things that, you know, kind of laying some groundwork, and we've been doing a lot of the basic work that we need to do to kind of get everybody on the same page. And I know I'm new, and they're still getting to know me, so I'm trying to make that, facilitate that. But Dr. Frazier, as Greg said, led some PD this morning, really got the teachers in the same room and talking about what we need to do better, what we already do great, and what things we do, and then what things we can get better at. And I think the teachers have really responded to that and really worked hard at acknowledging that, you know, they've got some things we need to get better at. And then that translates into the kids doing better as well. So I'm excited about the way things are going. We're going to have some fun stuff coming up in the spring. I talked to Travis Owens today about, he does some outdoor classroom stuff once the weather gets better. And he said roller skating. I don't know if you saw the video on the Facebook page, but we bring in roller skates from Roller City up in Mason City, and they spent 2 weeks doing roller skating. The kids just had a blast. Anyway, that's all I got, unless you have any other questions.
Where's the concert at?
At the auditorium, yeah.
Oh, in the
In the auditorium, so we'll have to move the boys basketball banquet to Jacobson Student Center, or whatever you want to call their cafeteria, or whatever area it is.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're back to employment of bunch of coaches and resignation of Joni Smith.
Right, you should have a supplement at your table. This is a letter from Mr. Fisher to me, and I'm passing these recommendations on to this board. These become my recommendations.
Thank you.
Move we approve. I'll second it.
Okay. Gary?
Can we vote on the coaches individually?
Yeah.
Your decision.
You have the call. It's up to you.
Let's just do it as a group.
What did you say, Jesse?
Let's just vote on it as a group.
Yeah, talk in your mic.
Oh.
Let's just do it as a group.
Do you have, we're open for comments right now, Jane.
I just wanted to abstain on one is all.
Oh, okay. All right, I don't think it's going to probably matter.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. I just would like to say, Greg, it would be nice if we could get these coaches sooner,
Yes,
because we're already in track season and we're
Correct.
still hiring a track coach.
correct.
It would be nice to have all this stuff done way ahead of time.
Correct.
And I love it that you're concentrating on your principal job. And that's a
We're gonna
good
help
reason
you,
to separate the principal job from the
guarantee
AD
that.
job. All right. Travis Owens.
Yeah, I just had to put it.
Yes.
in the name.
Okay, okay. All right, all in favor of the coaching recommendations to hire and the teacher to resign, say yes.
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 I heard 3 yeses. Okay.
But do roll call.
Yep, roll call, please.
Kathy Burke,
Yes.
Sharon Barkerman,
Yes.
Gary Bergman,
Yes.
Rick McDaniel,
Yes.
Larissa Musselman.
Before I answer, what was the vote again?
We're voting on this list of names in your handout of the coaches, plus the Jolene Smith to retire from teaching.
I was kind of with Jane on wanting to vote individually. So I have abstained for one of the coaches.
Okay.
But everything else I was okay with. So I don't know how to vote for that.
You can abstain.
I'll abstain.
Mark Slickney,
Abstain.
Jen Thorman,
Abstain.
Okay, we have a quorum, we have 4, so motion passes. Okay, school calendar.
I'm sorry, before, you accepted Jolene's recommendation?
Yes.
I just want to say, that was the classiest resignation letter.
It was
It
cool.
was.
I loved it.
And I went to her and said, okay, by the way, what you said at the end about coming back and working, yeah, we've already got 2 jobs for her. So we already put her on the hook for 2 more things next year, so just so you know.
And we might mention that the elementary actually asked that the board reject that resignation.
We did unanimously, but she didn't really want to hear about
But
it.
I didn't think I could really carry that message on.
No.
And I hope she will let the school have a retirement party for her.
I suspect she will.
I hope so. Not always do they want to, but I think she should be honored for all of her years.
I loved her as my teacher, personally.
Great teacher. Okay, school calendar for 2018-2019.
All right, the board should have in the packet copies of 2 calendars, and they're marked Draft C, and that has a full week at spring break. I'll call your attention to that one first. The board asked that, right now, for instance, what was not popular with some of you was what's happening this week on our current calendar, where the teachers have professional development on Monday, and then they turn around and have a day off on Friday following parent conferences, which it coordinates well for the teachers, but it might not be easy for the parents having to cover for kids that need sitters and so forth twice in the same week. So I've broken those days up and moved those about, and I moved them generally to the holidays, which as I mentioned before, are more convenient to the parents, because if parents have a holiday the same as those federal holidays, well, then they might give the family an opportunity to travel, or at least not have to seek a babysitter to look after their young children, or that kind of thing. But option C, you'll notice the second full week of March has a full week of spring break right after the end of the 3rd quarter. And now, I was told when I arrived here by the teachers, Fraser, don't do anything that would take away our week of spring break. So, with that in mind, I was prepared to recommend tonight a full week of spring break on the calendar. But as we look at the next calendar, you'll see that there is it's virtually the same calendar, but unlike calendar C, it has only 1 day of spring break in March, and instead we get out a whole week earlier, and that moves graduation up from Memorial Weekend to the weekend before. Now, just today I had a number of teachers that came to me and said, all right, we don't want the week of spring break.
That's what I've been hearing as well.
And that was different when they were not expecting a lot of snow days, but now we've got 6 snow days right now that we've missed. And they're saying, holy cow, let's just get rid of the spring break in the future, and let's just make sure we're out early enough so we don't have as much trouble making up the days. So I think the consensus of our teachers, maybe not the consensus, the majority of the teachers would find it appealing to have just a brief spring break and have that and have the, opt for calendar D at this point. I think that's, principals, did you have any discussion with your teachers in your faculty meetings today?
We had a little bit, and I would say they spent most of the time on a conversation about, should we be hours or days? So that's a discussion with you and the board, and basically, they, you know, the comments that, similar to what you heard in that big group, is that they are concerned about the spring break now because of the days we're gonna spend in June, the makeup days.
Yeah.
So.
And the only comment I really had on the calendar is that, I think there was some, there really wasn't any comments on spring break. There was some pushback on, I think they really do prefer early outs for PD versus late starts.
I heard that as well.
And I know that Dr. Fisher was trying to balance it, you know. We flipped our schedule this year, first half of the year, because they were all so many early outs. So we actually did a different special schedule first semester and second, so it actually balanced out for our students and our kids in terms of what they missed. But I don't have a strong feeling. I'm just saying they thought that was a good, and we did that, and so everybody was pretty happy. All the specials basically ended up being the same number of days and same number of times. I think they liked the early outs versus the late starts.
Although I will mention that the idea of alternating late starts and early outs was a recommendation from the teacher calendar committee.
I get that, yeah.
That's why it's there.
And but then I had people say, well, I didn't know that they did that, so it was back and forth.
Balance out the preschools, right, like missing.
Well, actually, the preschool doesn't meet at all on late starts or early outs. So it's not really an issue of that. It's just more a matter of balancing out your work day, that, especially at the secondary level, which evening, afternoon classes or morning classes could get pinched a little bit more on certain days.
Well, and you guys are relatively new here, but the concept of a week-long spring break is pretty new. It's at most 4 years old. So it's not like a long ingrained tradition.
And personally, I could care less, because I'm gonna be here through June anyway,
Which
so
is,
that's not matter to me.
what most of the
It should
teachers
be
that
up
I
to-
talked to said, I don't care, I can't go anywhere anyway, so.
Is that when they do the Washington DC though?
Yes.
Or is that, what do we?
I don't know what they did before.
They did it, we had Easter break, and they went, like, they missed a day, they missed like Wednesday, and then they were gone while we didn't have school on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and they got home on Sunday, or late Saturday night.
So they have maneuvered around it and it wouldn't be that big of an issue.
Right.
Okay, I'm just checking.
But again, that's not a school-sponsored trip, so we
Exactly.
don't have any
Exactly.
No, and
say-so.
maybe excuse for that too, so it's.
But it is, you know, the kids leaving the school and not getting those days, so I was just wondering.
Yep. Any more information to impart?
Really not.
Okay.
I had a question.
Yes.
So I do know that like a lot of students and families go on like vacations during spring break. So like my biggest concern would be like, even if we didn't have the spring break, there would still be those families who would want to go on vacation and just pull their students from school. That was just a concern.
Yeah, and I think there's probably people that have vacations planned for after school this year who all of a sudden now can't go, or their kids are gonna miss the last 5 days because they already have tickets to Disney World or whatever. All right, let's vote. I need a motion for a school calendar.
I will make a motion that we accept calendar draft D.
Okay.
Which one did she say?
D as in dog.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jane,
Okay.
any further discussion? All in favor, yes?
Yes.
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 All opposed, no? Motion carries. Calendar D. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this, Dr. Frazier.
That's a lot of work.
And
Not a
the
problem.
teachers and
Part of the
whoever
job.
all worked on it, yeah. Okay, school budget and finance, C2. Enrollment.
Oh, yeah, be right with you here.
Okay.
All right, I want to take you down, I've got several topics related to school budget and finance that I'd like to take you through. First one is enrollment projections. Now, the Iowa Department of Education does a pretty good job of taking a look at county birth rates and using that information to project out, based upon a mathematical calculation of how county birth rates have affected enrollments in past years, and indicating what the prospect is for our enrollment in future years. So right now, at the top of page 49, you can see that the Iowa Department of Education suggested we were going to grow this year, and of course we were down 30 students instead of being up 3. So they're not always right. But then now they're saying we're going to be down a couple students, but then looks like they're suggesting good, healthy growth for the 2021 school year, 21-22 school year. So obviously we're not going to start making budgetary decisions for those years, 3 and 4 years down the road, but it shows a hopeful outlook anyway. So I just wanted to give you that enrollment forecast. As far as elementary class size, there's no action on the enrollment forecast. Elementary class size. This is something we get a special grant from both the state and the federal government to help reduce class size. Now, the money we get comes to just shy of $100,000, and that does less. That supports roughly. The money comes to just less than $82,000 and does not fully fund 2 teachers. And right now we're essentially employing 2 teachers to help us lower our class size. So since that money is important to employing those 2 teachers, I'd recommend we continue on employing those 2 extra teachers. Even though we could use the funds in some other ways, I'd recommend that continued use of the money. Any questions or comments?
Do you need a vote on that?
Let's see. Yes, I would like a vote on that.
Can I have a motion on the elementary class size funds, funding the 2 teachers that the federal government and the state help pay for?
So moved.
Sharon? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Teresa? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
All right, next up on page 51, it starts to give you some ideas about how we're staffed. 80% of our budget goes toward the cost of personnel. And since the other 20% tend to be caught up in very fixed costs, like our heat bills, our light bill, those kinds of things, transportation, gas for the buses, those kinds of things, why then, when we make major budget adjustments, we're almost always dealing with personnel issues. And you can see on that page 51, that we're staffed comparably to other districts of similar size. With serving roughly 720 students, we have 48 certified teachers. And that's pretty comparable right now. Or I'm sorry, 48 support staff, 55 teachers, which is actually a little below the mean. So we're pretty lean, and some people have been nervous about, me among them, about the idea of would budget circumstances force a personnel reduction. At this point, given the fact we haven't got word back from the audit, from our auditor yet, I don't think I can in good conscience recommend personnel reductions, especially when our statistics suggest that we're already pretty tight in that regard. So I do not anticipate any personnel reductions in that regard. The next page, moving on to page 52, you'll see what we're looking at in terms of classroom counts. Now, we're going to continue to study this, but right now, Mr. Young's best guess is that we may have about 45 students in kindergarten. Well, what does that mean? Well, it may mean that we may be in a position where we have to hire an additional kindergarten teacher and find an additional classroom in the elementary. So, now, I'm not ready to make a recommendation tonight, but I don't think we can wait any longer than March. We'll try to make some kind of a recommendation in March, because March, April is the prime hiring season, if we're going to get on this promptly. And I base the recommendation to reduce class size in kindergarten based upon the Tennessee STAR study and the Wisconsin STAGE study. You read a little bit about that at the bottom of page 52. Any questions and comments, disagreements with that?
Okay, so there's 56 kindergartners this year, is that
Right.
what you said? And next year there'll be 51.
Right.
Why would we need an extra classroom?
Because we're still planning on having that first grade in 3 different sections.
So it has nothing to do with kindergarten?
Well, the sixth grade group that's moving out is only a 2-section group.
Okay,
And
got
then the kindergarten coming in would be 3,
Got
so
it,
that would mean
okay.
we're +1. Assuming everything else stays the same, we'd be +1 across the board.
I understand now.
6th grade is, like, okay, I get it.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving Mr. Young's desk into the restroom and turning opposite.
I have a nice office, but it's not big enough for a classroom.
Well, they made that workroom in the classroom a couple years ago.
They did.
Yeah,
I just teased them about that.
yeah. Okay. So you don't need any.
I don't need any action on that, if the board is okay with that right now. And then on page 53, you can see, this is what we're looking at in terms of class size. And with the idea that if we were to try to keep our K-3 classes under 20, we can do that if we hire that third kindergarten section. If in another month it still looks like we're looking at 45 kindergartners. And if we continue to have our current section distribution grades 4, 5, and 6, why then we'll be satisfactory size with the exception perhaps of 6th grade, which is a little on the high side at 28. Your feelings about that?
I'd rather at 6th than at 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I think the key is that
Oh,
the
yeah.
older they get, the more able we are to cover more territory with the staff person. But I think the real rub is that if we had our druthers, we'd have another teacher and make that class size less.
3 sections of 5th grade, right? 'Cause
We
that's
will,
the
yes.
5th grade, yeah.
Okay. Other than that, as you look at ages grades 7 through 12, why then we're in trying to keep the numbers per classroom under 30. Why then we're able to accomplish that next year. I guess with the sixth grade next year, 6th grade the only outlier in that pattern. You feel comfortable with what the administration currently has for a staffing plan?
I am.
Okay. And I described that a little bit more on page 54. I maybe could have finished that document a little bit, but I've got no other information on that right now, so that concludes the class size and the staffing patterns. With that, I'll take you, this is what Ms. Green and I put together then for the budget. Ms. Green did most of the, Greenfield did most of the legwork on this. I just came in and signed off at the end and said, look what we did.
Well, you did it all.
All right, one of the concerns I have as we look at our budget, I'm sure it's a concern that you board members have, and that is our levy rate. We tend to be a little bit higher than some of our neighbors. As you look at page 55 at the bottom of that, you can see I did the comparisons with what our neighbors are paying for property taxes in those districts, and you can see that of the 10 districts listed here, counting us, we're the highest of the 10. So I would hope we could try to do something to alleviate that, and here's my plan to do that. On page 56, you'll see a little bit about where some of the numbers are. You can see I'm calculating a 1% growth rate in state funding. Based upon, of course, we're looking at a decline in student enrollment based on last October. We're funded next year on last October's enrollment. And that creates the levy rates that you see at the bottom of page 56. So here's the decisions I'm asking of the board tonight. And that's on page 57. Category A, the management levy. This current year, we're levying a levy rate of 42 cents, and we're generating 118,000. Now that's because we usually spend out about 118,000 out of our management fund. But right now we've got 1.15 million in reserve and management fund. And now, maybe the board feels like it's good to have a good, healthy balance, but I disagree with that. I think the management fund has very specific parameters on which you can spend that money. And we don't need that kind of a war chest in that fund. Now, if we were looking at a massive early retirement plan or something like that, I'm sure it was. I could well imagine it was. Your levy has been as high as $1.59 to help generate that kind of money that you've got in reserve there. But right now, I'm suggesting, let's just drop it down to a $10,000 levy. That's only 3.5 cents. That's so somebody who owns a $200,000 house, that would cost them 35 cents. Our cash reserve levy this year, we're levying for about $550,000. This is letter B on that page, and that'll cost our taxpayers $1.90. That is currently costing our taxpayers $1.91. I'd like to. We still have a need for cash because not all our spending authority is backed by cash, so we have a need for cash. So I'd like to keep that up there, but I think we can drop it back a little bit. And I'm going to suggest we drop it back to $506,000. That would be a levy rate of $1.76. And we're at $506,000. We're falling well short of the state maximum, which is $817,000. Letter C, board voted PEPL is 33-cent levy. It was last year, it was the year before that, and the year before that, since time immemorial. I suggest just keeping that in place. We've got some facility needs that can come in handy for. As far as the statewide penny for infrastructure tax, and I call it SPIT, but I've tried to get that name accepted by other people, but nobody else wants to call it that. But say, yeah, everybody goes with SAVE. I thought I had a more clever acronym for that. Anyway, we're expecting $750,000 this year, and right now in reserve we've got 2.6 in our sales tax fund that we can put toward our facilities, and I think we've got some facility needs. And finally, our levy this year was $2.49 on our debt service levy. This is letter D on that sheet. I'd like to suggest raising that slightly to $2.70. We can still drop our overall levy down, but by going to our maximum of $2.70, we can reduce some of our principal and thereby in the long run save our taxpayers money. So what I'm proposing right now, just for your own calculation purposes, $10,000 in a $10,000 levy costs our taxpayers about 35 cents. So I'm recommending the budget on pages 58 and 59, and I'll let you look through that and discuss.
And then there'll be a public hearing on this a month from now.
March 22nd, yes. The board right now is approving what they want to put in the paper and show to the public. Keep in mind, if it comes to the public hearing, you can always lower those levies at the public hearing, but you cannot raise them at the public hearing. Right.
So what would the overall be?
The overall levy, we're looking at $15.89.
So that's that bottom one in the first column?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And what are we currently?
We are currently 1607, 1608.
And we're still higher than everybody.
We are, even at 1589, even if we make a nice drop that way, we'd drop it about 20 cents, we'd still be high in the area. But we're making strides. We need to get our bond paid off. That was help a big, large amount.
All right.
I like it the way it is.
What agreed?
What he's proposed, I think it's a good proposal. I understand his reasons for the modifications. I think paying off the debt early, I'm always a believer, it's good fiscal responsibility. Pay it off early if you can, that gives you some flexibility down the road instead of being tight and having all your debt service tied up so that you can't do anything else. I don't like that, never did like that.
We will need a motion, yes, at some point, when the board's done discussing it.
Well, I'll consider it a motion.
Okay, Gary? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, now we're open for discussion. If there's any further discussion.
Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor to approve the proposed budget for publication for fiscal year 2019. All in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? No? Motion passes. All right, number 6 or 5 or whatever number.
6.
Please
Okay.
say 6.
Our enrollment declined, and when it declines, since we're funded on a per pupil basis, so we don't have such a severe funding cut on that decline, there is a mechanism called the school budget guarantee. However, it's part of the property tax levy. It comes in that cash reserve levy that you just approved. In order to take advantage of that, the board each year must pass a school budget guarantee resolution, and I have that printed at in the middle of page 60.
All right, so we need a motion on the school budget guarantee resolution. Anyone want to move that we adopt that?
I'll make the motion.
Rick? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jane? Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor of
It
these?
asks for, the resolution asks for a roll call.
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Betty Burke,
Yes?
Sharon Bergman,
Yes.
Gary Beckman,
Yes.
Rick McDaniel,
Yes.
Larissa Musselman,
Yes.
Marcus Ricky,
Yes.
Jane Turner,
Jane Turner?
Yes.
Okay. Unanimous. It passed. And Teresa, thank you for all your work on this.
Absolutely, glad to do it.
All right, now we're at, I don't even.
Letter
know.
D, credit for non-teaching
It's
experience.
D again, is it?
to D.
Credit on the teacher's salary scale for non-teaching experience.
Okay, I raised this issue with the board last month, that we've got very restrictive language that probably was originally board language that restricts where teachers are placed on our salary schedule. But my suggestion is, with the teacher shortage that our districts are currently encountering, in order to attract and retain the good people we need in this organization, that we need to have more flexibility in our hiring process and in our placement on the salary schedule. I've given you some background information, and there are a lot of, I would say the majority of districts still have restrictive languages, but some districts have exceptions to that allow some flexibility in the hiring process. What I would like to ask of the board tonight is if they would vote to authorize me to meet with the Teacher Association and see if we could craft sample language that would give us that more additional flexibility.
Yeah, that's a step before actually making the decision.
Correct.
I like that. That's a good plan.
All right, so
Do
we
you have
need a
any
motion.
ideas how many teachers this would affect, Dan?
Well, it would be strictly board and administration discretion. So after we have the language in place, we can decide that we don't necessarily need to move on any individuals, but we may choose to in order to attract and retain some hard-to-fill positions.
Okay, thank you.
It's certainly the case that we don't know if we're gonna have more resignations before the end of the year that we may need to fill. So I can see that there's a possibility of not only existing, but future decisions that'll have to be made, and to have something in place would be helpful.
Okay, so not to be a super stickler on Robert's Rules of Order, but we really need a motion and then we can discuss.
Oh, picky.
You know, 40 years of Girl State.
I know. Well, then I'll make that motion.
Okay. So you are moving
The
that the board
recommendation.
authorize negotiations with the Teacher Association for language modification to our master agreement allowing for flexibility regarding placement of teachers on the salary schedule. Thank you,
And I'll second that.
Sharon. Now we can discuss.
And what I said before.
And then, will this make any difference in the next year when the master contract changes,
Yes.
or possibly changes?
Well, at this time next year, we won't be bargaining this. This will be board discretion.
Okay.
We're dealing with it now because we have a contract.
Correct.
Contract.
And we can reopen that contract, is that 2-year contract, midstream?
By mutual agreement.
Yes.
We cannot unilaterally.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right, so is there any further discussion? Yeah. All right, hearing none, we need a vote on the movement to authorize negotiations with the Teacher Association for language modification to our master agreement allowing for flexibility regarding placement of teachers on the salary scale. All in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion passes. Okay. Now we're on to discussion items. These are discussion only, no action will be taken. Sharing of sports and activities. And as Mr. Fisher said, the board instructed Dr. Frazier to just look into some sharing options and just to look into it.
Yeah, at this point, we really haven't contacted anybody. Mr. Fisher was privy to one meeting last year, but I brought it tonight so we can start talking about what direction you would like to go. Is there anybody you'd like me to talk to in particular? Any particular sports you'd like to discuss? Or do you want to leave that to the discretion of the administration?
Do you have some results on your survey?
No, I'll have those coming back, we'll take it this week, and so I'll have it coming back. Again, he mentioned it to me, I didn't get it done. Mr. Frazier mentioned it to me, and so I did not get it done in place, so I have results for you. Again, my thing is certainly we can look at, trying to come up with other things people have done to help support their sports, including how they've looked at to try and regenerate or renovate or make their programs more viable internally, how they do things outside to make it more viable in the community, look at how they go through that sharing component, so we can do that in the association's part and get some input from them as well if you want me to pursue that. And then when I come back next time, I can have the results, plus have ideas from the ISEA and Iowa Girls High School Athletic Union to help share, to try and facilitate those conversations, what we need to do to help best for our kids, if you want me to do that.
Yes, that would be great.
That would be good. I think this is initial stages. I get the sense that for us to, I don't have anything to talk about because I don't have a clue about what we're looking at or how it might develop until we have materials, some information to work on, so.
And to answer Bobby's question from earlier, I think we've discussed this before, that we have done sharing agreements in various sports with various schools. I know, for example, cross-country, we've shared with Garner and Hayfield, and we've shared with Dow's and Cal, and both of those were short-term agreements that went away once we were the strong program that were helping those other two schools, and once they could stand on their own 2 feet, then they went on their own.
Well, we're doing soccer right now with Hampton Dumont and Cal.
Yeah.
Latimer, I should say.
Right.
But, so it's not Cal, it's Latimer. So we do have some of those programs in place. And you're right, they could be short-term, get you past that blip. It could be that we decide that we're better off staying on our own. Again, that's the conversations you guys have to have, and the parents and the kids all have to be part of that process. I think there's a mechanism that we can go to help get support to do that.
I think we're just seeking information.
Yeah.
So at the next board meeting, you would have more information for us?
Yes, I will.
Okay, Jane, I'm sorry, what?
That's okay. And I think the public too, should be aware that we're looking at all different sports, not just wrestling. And we're looking at numbers and if it's viable, and the cost also is involved. And, it could be a short-term thing. It could be a one-year thing. Maybe our numbers would be up, and then we could go back to our own. I know Northwood has done that in the past. So, and we would have plans. We would know where we're going to practice, where we're not going to, what we're going to do. All those things would be set in place first. and we would share that with the public if that happens.
Well, and I also know, Jane, that, another school I was at, Centerville, I was approached by a student to offer debate because we didn't do that. Well, again, it'd be a shared program with somebody, would not do that here, we'd have to probably do that with Mason City or someplace as well, because we would not have that available to the kids inside our district, but we certainly would like to have those opportunities available. So I think you look at a lot of things, not just sports. I think you look at activities.
Correct.
And some things you might have to look into as, is this even allowed? Like, for example, well, in my area of expertise, Allstate, you can't share with another school.
Yeah.
You cannot, that's not allowed. So even if you wanted to, you
Yeah.
couldn't.
Yeah. The debate's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Because you can actually practice and work with them and stuff, but you have to be on your own bit.
Mhm.
to present, to actually debate.
And I think it would be nice if you get the numbers before next time, if maybe you speak to a few schools around and just question even possibilities, or if anybody's even interested or not, or, because I think there's time frames when you have to do this as far as sports for next year or whatever, but.
Yeah, isn't there some sort of a calendar deadline?
There are some that are hard to set. Football's come and gone.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, basically, they have some guidelines of the last day you have to do it. Now, there's some cases when you're like 3 or 4 athletes and you're supposed to have 20, they're gonna allow you to do a merger really quick in that situation, because some, but most of them, they have a certain date that they want you enrolled by, and they have that sharing program in place. It's usually, and I think it's like April 15th or something. I gotta look. Get that
Do you have
exact
any
date.
idea, Greg, if we'll have enough for JV baseball this year?
I don't know for sure what the numbers will be there. We've got changing the coaching staff there, hopefully. A lot of times, or I shouldn't say a lot of times, but sometimes when you do have those changes, you do get a bump in participation, so hopefully it comes through. I know in the junior high level, we have a lot of 6th graders that look like they're gonna come out, and some 7th graders that come out, so our junior high numbers should be okay. Just being able to play the games. I don't know about the 8th graders and the 9th graders, whether they're going or not.
And 7th graders would,
They would play down. They play middle school.
but 8th graders would play up.
They can play either 8th grade or the high school level, or they could do both if they want to. They just can't go up and play the high school level after the last day of school. Supposedly. Used to be, I should correct that.
Which would be June 10th.
I need to go back and make sure I'm correct, because they did do some stuff with baseball and softball, so I need to make sure I'm correct.
Yeah, okay.
I retract that statement, I'll make sure I'm right before I reduce it, because it did have some clarification on that.
I think it's fair to make sure our kids, get a chance to be successful in whatever they do, and if it's for a year and they are improved and numbers are better, then they can switch or whatever, but that's always an option, I think, too.
Anybody have any other
Expect
concerns?
good report next time.
All right.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I'm with the soccer program, and it's a shared program with Hampton and Cal, and there's that sense of not really being supported within the community. Like, you go to Cal and you see the soccer poster, but you come here and you see all the other schools, but you don't see anything about soccer. So if we were to do this, I think just being inclusive in both schools would be a really big staple thing in principal and going forward with this and looking into this proposed idea. Thoughts?
Why do you think that is? Is because the coaches from Cal, that they promoted?
I don't really know why it is. It's just been that kind of in the beginning.
Are you saying we don't get promotion here?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
So we don't engage ourselves in the soccer program, even though we're a part of it
Right.
in this school.
How many kids are out for the soccer?
We used to have we had 15 girls out when it first began a couple years ago. Now our numbers have come down. Last year we had 5 or so.
Had 3 to finish the season.
Yeah, 3
And one
finished the
boy.
season. I think it's just more so students not really knowing that there is I talked to freshmen and a lot of them didn't even know we offered it. So that was a big shock to me. It's just, I think just being inclusive of the program itself. It's hard too when like all our practices and all our games are in Cal, or at Cal because of Hampton, and that's just the middle meeting ground, which is not a problem. It's also the sense of like, over there we're cadets, like our soccer program is a cadet program, so it's that sense of not being a Bronco, so at the same time it's hard.
So you're saying like no locker signs on your locker for soccer, or, you know, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's just more of like, as a community being aware, like even when we put out like in the newspaper, like we put like spring sports, soccer isn't included.
So will the soccer have to go to Hampton then, if Cal closes?
That was something that I was thinking about going towards the future. With them going whole grade sharings next year, it would make sense for them. The way they're looking at it is having the high school at Hampton, so it makes sense for them to do practice there since all the students would be there. I have talked to students from Clarion Goldfield Dallas, and there's been a huge interest in doing a soccer program at their school. I think that if we were to look into sharing, instead of doing it with Cal, it could be an option of going with Clarion. There's definitely interest there. Students wanted to start a program this year. It just was too late for them to start.
It'd be a lot closer.
It'd be a lot closer. Transportation would be a lot cheaper. Definitely be something to look into.
And maybe Clarion would come to our school for the soccer, since we already have an established one.
The reason we didn't do soccer here from the beginning was because they were afraid of us tearing up the football field with our soccer cleats. Even though they're quite the same as like football cleats, they wouldn't tear it up like more than a football cleat would. But that was the biggest concern.
Sure.
But I don't really see that being that big of a problem.
And I think that's true, what you're saying, but I think it's because it probably wasn't started at the lower level, and I think BCBC is now starting a soccer program. So that might, you know, make that grow more.
I personally have been a coach for BCBC soccer, and it's really a program that there is an interest in, like with the students coming up. This year I do know there's a lot of the high school boys that are going out. I do see quite a big interest in them actually. So it would be really nice to see the people that actually do go out this year. But then again, like going back to just looking at sharing, I feel like if we were to share, we need to incorporate both schools if we were to look into those programs happening here.
Where does BCBC practice?
They practice at the Parker Field and then indoors. Well, I coached when it was in the summertime, but now they're bringing up into the spring sport, so since I'm in soccer myself, I can't be a coach anymore. But I do know that when it's rainy, they go into like the gyms and practice then.
Yeah, they do have some dates reserved.
But the younger children probably don't wear cleats, do they?
Yes.
Yes. They do. Kindergartners do not, because just to keep them safe. But when they're inside, they wear soccer shoes. We actually are starting our open gyms for soccer this Sundays, and we wear like indoor shoes, tennis shoes. Much of our practices actually do end up being inside because of the weather and the rain. And Cal's field often gets flooded, so we can't practice on it. So we end up in the gym quite a few days. We get wet.
Maybe we need to look into a place for you to practice soccer.
Yeah, I would think the football practice field would work, yeah.
Anything else on this discussion item from anybody? All right, moving on. School Board Policy 213, public participation in board meetings.
Well, I wanted to put this on the agenda tonight. I suggested this topic. Our policy, as I read it, suggests that we have our open forum at the beginning of the meeting. If citizens want to speak later during the meeting, they ask their time at the beginning of the meeting. And otherwise, the board conversation is restricted to the board members at the table, unless the board makes exception and incorporates say, the principals into the discussion or somebody else with a special report. Just wondered how comfortable the board felt with the policy as we currently have it written.
And I'm assuming this is language that came from them,
This is our current language,
but
yes.
we probably got it from,
It's from the School Board Association, yes.
yeah.
I think there needs to be clear delineation between the public participation and the discussion among the board members. I think that's always been the kind of the Robert's rules of procedure. That if the public has something to say, they say it at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, which isn't terribly helpful. But they say it, and then when they're done, they don't have an opportunity to speak again for the rest of the meeting. So that we then deliberate among ourselves, having the input from the public to the extent they want to offer it, and then, of course, from all of the advice we get from our administrative staff. I like the policy. I think it's a good one. The only thing that you would obviously see on occasion when there are large numbers of public who want to speak, the board chair may have to impose a time limit, but that certainly is within the board's power anyway, so I like the policy personally.
Anybody else? It is. I guess my concern with it is, and I was probably the one that violated it last month, is I felt that we had someone in the audience that knew more about the topic than any of us did, and it was helpful to have his insight as we were making a decision.
That was told in the rules because it was at your discretion.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone's happy with the policy as it reads?
Pretty much.
Okay. Moving on. Board comments and future agenda planning. So we've got next month's tentative agenda on page 65. Do we want to look at finding a night for a workshop to discuss the school board convention?
Well, that brings to mind that there are other topics we could also discuss at that
Absolutely,
point.
of course, yes.
Teresa brought up a really interesting point in your communication with the board, and I thought we need to address that. I think that's a good thing to talk about bullying and how well we're dealing with that in our district. I think that's the kind of thing we can talk about and work at a board workshop. So, yeah, that's a great idea. Just finding the date.
Right.
I couldn't get you attached into it, and then, so, but I will forward it on to you.
Do you have
You were lost.
a calendar, the school calendar, so we don't prompt on any dates?
Yeah, I'm sure we can
Some Sunday morning.
call that up real quick.
As long as it's not on site, we'll be okay.
Can't believe you said that.
It's during choir, Jackie. It's during choir.
Our church is out at 10:30.
Oh,
Ours is
yeah.
starting.
Yeah, we're just getting rolling now. Most of us sleep in, you see.
Not me. Get her done.
Get her
You could do an omelet breakfast about 12:30.
That'd be good. Yeah,
Right
that's
after the
right.
omelet breakfast.
Why don't you just hang on to it and just shout out with,
If somebody hollers out a date and it doesn't, we can double check it.
the inconvenience of not having the school calendar on the website.
Yeah.
For me, Tuesdays and Thursdays are the best.
Okay.
Monday's school, I have city council, I have other issues that come up on Monday.
What about the 27th of March? It's a Tuesday.
My wife's birthday, that's a good day.
Shame on
I don't have
you.
to take her out, right?
We could have it after dinner.
After dinner.
The FFA banquet is on that night.
FFA, then for that night.
You can take her to the FFA then.
Oh,
Somebody's got
And that's a
conflict,
potluck,
Public
Oh.
school.
or it used to be
I
anyway.
know it is.
I'll ask her to bake something or cook something.
All right, so we want to get into April then?
March and the regular dates that anybody can look at?
Well, the school board meeting is the 22nd. Gary wants to stay with Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
I prefer those. Wednesdays, church.
Yep, nope.
We have
I don't
activities.
wanna-
Mondays, I'm
nothing
busy.
on Wednesday.
Fridays, I don't like to come to
Well,
meetings on
and
Friday
that
night.
week that we were just talking about, we'll have church on Thursday.
Yeah, Monday, Thursday, that's true.
So
We will.
actually Wednesday.
Wednesday would work before
For
Monday,
us.
Thursday. That'd be a good one.
Yeah.
28th.
Could we meet just like an hour maybe before our next board meeting? Or not?
Well, I don't
No.
eat. No.
No?
I'm hearing no.
Okay.
I get hungry.
We're farmers, we don't eat at 5 o'clock.
Will you be back in town, Jane?
When? Are you
March?
talking-
28th.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I will be.
Okay.
You should be fine with that Wednesday.
The 28th
28th,
at
looks like it's good.
7?
Or you want to do it earlier like we did the last one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
chow.
earlier is fine.
A chow.
Ooh.
Right. Pizza or something. Yeah, I'm game.
Okay.
5:30.
5:30?
5.
What?
6.
And we'll feed you.
You're gonna eat, Sharon?
Someone will feed you.
Can I take some home in a doggy bag for my husband?
Yes.
No, no, no. Tell him you just have to go out to eat. Wait, is it 5:30 or 6? What did we decide? 6 p.m.?
I just wrote down 5:30, but I'll change it to 6.
What does everybody agree to? That's all I know. You be there,
Are we
won't you?
eating?
Right?
Are you?
Sure, we can do that.
5:30 or 6?
5:30 is better.
5:30 it is. All right. Board workshop.
You won't get it.
Here at the school.
You'll be growling.
We'll see. We'll see what I can find.
It was nice to be out at the yard sale.
It was
Yeah.
a nice setting, comfortable.
Okay. Place to be determined.
PDT.
Yeah.
Okay.
TBD.
TBD.
No.
That's it. We
What?
have a closed
Already?
session after this. Well, that's not us, but it's,
No, they're gonna go on for another 20 minutes.
okay. Anything else? If not, we will need motion to go into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Sharon?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.